Luzon and Philippines. And next, I will present this a long title. Hope you enjoy it. So first, regarding today's talk, there is a new thing I want to experiment with. Usually, talks about the vulnerability research always end with a success. Of course, if it wasn't a success, it wouldn't be accepted by conferences. However, for today's talk, I want it to be more than just a showcase. I would like to share more about my thoughts during a research. I would like to focus more on the paths I have tried, the failure I have experienced, and my own reflections. Maybe it could be some references to your next hacking. And also, this is a great excuse for me to organize my workspace. I believe many of us have this situation, having a lot of nameless files such as a.py, b.py, or test.py during a research. So this is a good opportunity for me to merge everything into a talk. Okay, who am I? I'm Orange, and currently I'm the principal security researcher at DevCore. I have spoken at many top hacking conferences and got awards such as the Pwn2Own champion and the Pwn2Own Awards. So why I am target Sonos? Back to 2020, I was stuck at a big target and get tired of reviewing a lot of code. I would like to have something different, and the Pwn2Own came up. I picked a target that no one broke before. That's the initial reason. This is the schedule for our first year. We start to review the Sonos just 2 weeks before the registration deadline. Because we didn't have the physical device, our initial attempts are based on black box. We have several attempts, such as fasting the web, searching for the firmware on the internet, and even try to exploit its update mechanism. The web is most straightforward attack surface. However, since we are based on black box, most of the information are based from the internet or by the tool like Dearbuster. We know the web is mainly composed with two parts. The first part is for debugging, such as the status shows information and a password protected unlock and developer mode for debugging. The other part is UPnP, which contains a lot of SOAP operations, allows developers to control the speakers, such as playing music, turning up the volume, or controlling the alarm clock. This is one of the debugging page. Looks interesting, right? Unfortunately, there isn't any simple bug such as the command injection. Yes, Orange use command injection is not very effective. I'm pretty confident for this result. But if you truly find another simple bug here, feel free to ask me for a beer by this presentation. Regarding the SOAP operations, there is actually an open source project called Soco that lets you control Sonos by API directly. For example, you can turn up or turn down the volume, play music from a URL, or even grab the information from the checklist. Of course, since Sonos trusts everyone from the internet by default, so without a firewall, you can turn up someone's volume to the max and play some annoying music remotely. So while exploring the API, we noticed a SOAP operation called begin software update. The API has an user-supplied update URL, and we try to give it to our own server to see what would happen. And surprisingly, we received an HTTP request that comes from the user agent wget. Using a black box approach is always wasting time. So to break this situation, we have to get the firmware first. We find several firmwares on the internet. However, most of the firmwares are old and outdated. The newer firmware are encrypted and could no longer be analyzed by Beamwork. The latest plaintext firmware is 45.1, which is roughly from 2 years ago. Okay, even it was from 2 years ago, we still had the binary at least. We reversed the old binary and learned the mechanism works as follows. When a web server receives the begin software update request, it first invokes the upgrade binary for subsequent processing. This binary then asks the wget to fetch the corresponding URL, pipes the content to standard out, and pass it. We proposed several attacks against the mechanism. First, since we can use wget to access any URL, we tried SSRF. However, we cannot find any good local service to exploit. Also, given that wget is used, our next idea is to check if there are any past vulnerabilities in wget we can leverage. But sadly, we didn't find any. We also developed some firmware attacks, such as backdooring the firmware or having a downgrade attack. Both attacks failed because the Sonos used an RSA to protect the backdoor and used a hash to prevent it from the downgrade attack. So here is a code for you. If anyone here can crack this hash, please let me know. Maybe we can share the prize at Pwn2Own this year. So we failed all attempts, and eventually we shift our attention to the firmware parser. Since the upgrade binary operates as a standalone program, it feels like playing a classic CTF challenge. And indeed, we discovered a buffer overflow on it. We exploit it on our local environment successfully. However, for some reason, we couldn't get it right on the latest firmware. We get stuck in this situation at just the offset binary and couldn't figure out why we failed until the competition ended. So this is our first year. To sum out, we managed to have an exploit works on the firmware from 2018. However, it's useless against the latest version. Looking back to our first year, I believe we made fair progress, especially considering that we only had 2 weeks. The only thing it could be better, I guess, is my speed in reverse engineering, especially in C++. It could be better. Maybe I should enhance it in the future. Having discussed the first year, let's move on to the second year. You might be wondering, why would you focus on the same target again? First, not getting any RCE on my chosen target felt like a lose, and I don't like it. And the other reason is that a company called Synactive released a detailed article that explained how to use hardware attacks to dump the memory before the competition starts. I'm totally not a hardware guy, so I can learn a new skill and understand the mystery last year. Sounds great. So this time, we bought the equipment early and allocate for 3 months to prepare for this competition. For the hardware component, oh my God. Oh my God, I only had a coffee today. Oh, it's hard, a little bit dizzy. Okay, back to our presentation. So for the hardware component, we need a USB 3380 evaluation board to perform the DMA attack. Also, these boards are actually sold out on the internet. But luckily, one of the resellers is based on our country. So I just give a phone call, pay the money physically, and got it within 24 hours. Regarding to the setup, since I am a hardware newbie, I spent an entire week and still couldn't get it right. The first problem I have is why there is no response when I plug it on my computer. At that point, I even suspected that I bought a broken device. I get stuck for an entire week, and finally, I came across a comment from the author on the GitHub issue, stating that the USB interface on the hardware is disabled by default. To use it, you have to flash the firmware from another probe first. Okay. So after identifying the root cause, let's flash the USB. The initial challenge was finding the adapter. In the case, a mini PCIe to micro USB adapter, which proved to be difficult since most modern devices no longer use mini PCIe. I even took apart my own laptop, but only find the M.2 interface. So after having further research, I learned that the mini PCIe was primarily used in laptops from the 2010s for the wireless card. So to continue the task, I borrowed a ThinkPad T430 from my friend. This is the ThinkPad that I borrowed from my friend. After removing the wireless card, we finally have the interface of mini PCIe. I plugged it to my computer to flash the firmware excitedly. But suddenly, an error message shows that the ThinkPad has a whitelist for the mini PCIe device. The BIOS would only accept the hardware from its allow list. We can bypass this whitelist by flashing our own BIOS image. However, to do that, we have to jailbreak the BIOS first. And this, in turn, requires downgrading the BIOS to an older version that has a known vulnerability. After all the hard work, my Windows finally recognized the hardware, and I successfully got a local root shell through the DMA attack. The entire process takes almost a week, and our vulnerability research just began. With the local shell, we have the binary can reverse finally. We first try some straightforward bug hunting without too much thinking. For example, we quickly reverse all implementation of the debugging path, look for paths that cause system commands, and check for all unset string operations to see if there are any simple overflows. All these attempts are failed. But even so I claim that I have checked everything, I still overlook some bugs. So don't trust anyone who tell you that they have checked everything and find no bug. Without any success, I decided it's time to really use my brain. Firstly, consider that Sonos is a music player. It must support a bunch of media formats. And actually, most of the media parsers are built upon open source projects. Given the complexity of the media formats, I'm pretty sure that fuzzing could find bugs. However, I choose not to use fuzzing because I prefer finding bugs by my own eyes more. So it's just my personal preference and without any right and wrong. We then turn our focus on how Sonos handles the metadata. This type of information isn't typically handled by This type of information isn't typically handled by open source project, so it may be all done manually, which really caught my attention. So in my opinion, instead of learning a little reviewing the boring open source project, diving into their handmade code gave me more insight to know their coding style. Follow this standard, let me uncover my first bug. It's located in the part where Sonos parsed the metadata for the MPEG-TS format. Here is the IDA Pro decompiler result. As you can see, it first reads 1 byte and then use it as the length of the second read and fill the buffer. So theoretically, if the buffer has been defined to be less than 0x100, that would be a buffer overflow. We check the buffer in IDA Pro. It seems to have only 0xd0. Everything looks great. However, no matter how hard we try, we couldn't get any crash. It was only when we used GDB, we realized that before the second read, the program would increase the stack pointer based on the length we got from the first read. So actually, the IDA decompiler result is a bit wrong. The real code probably includes a dynamic stack allocation by the function errorcar. So no matter how much length the buffer used, this code is not vulnerable. So congratulations, we have our first fake bug. Here I would like to highlight a typical flowchart of a vulnerability researcher's daily life. While you're doing the research, you will see a lot of hope first. And then realize that there's simply no bug. And when you just think everything is over, you grab another hope again. And the hope is still a fake bug. You still get nothing. But even so, you still can't give up because all the struggles help you understand the system more. And they are all the necessary part to finding the real bug. Anyway, after some time and effort, we defined a real bug. This time the bug was in the metadata parser of the MP3's ID3 tag. Here's the simple structure of an ID3 tag. An ID3 can have many friends, and each friend stores different information such as the artist, the comment, or the track info. The friend size shows the length of the friend data below. In the MP3 standard, the friend data should be a string. So to read the string, we saw the null byte. The developer at Sonos decreased the friend size by 1 without any check. They forget to check the condition that the size is 0. So there is an integer on the floor here. Of course, it's not that simple to reach this on the floor. You have to set several flags to ensure that the MP3 parser is in the synchronization mode to trigger this bug. Regarding the exploitation, it's not too difficult. This integer on the floor can be converted into stack buffer overflow directly. And the subsequent exploitation is easy. Even your cat can do this. Since there is no PIE or stack canary, we can just replace the GOT of strcast compare with the system by ROP. Yeah, really easy. So this is our second year. To conclude our second year, firstly, identify a good attack service can really save your time. Just like our entry point, which is based on the handmade parser entirely. However, in contrast to the good attack surface, I might spend too much time on the wrong path. And talking about the setup of the hardware here. I think try and error is fine, but try and error blindly is not. So my takeaway is, it's better to spend a little time first understanding the basics instead of trying and error blindly. It can avoid unnecessary detours. Another reflection is, did I give out the fuzzing too early? Because another thing that at the same year exploited the bug in the media parser, which seems to have been fuzzable. And the final thought is, always read the manual first. If I had done this earlier, I wouldn't spend an entire week wondering whether the device was broken or not. Moving on to the third year at Pwn2Own, you might be wondering, why did you choose it again? The reason this time is very simple. I was blindly by the money completely. Last year, we just spent 1 month to earn about 60,000 US dollars. I thought that the third year would follow the same easy way to be rich. But please allow me to give a spoiler. The third year was not easy at all. We struggled with this target for a full 3 months. Before the competition started, I met a friend from the NCC group at HitCon 2022. We chat together, and he said, "Hey, did you know that Sonos has enabled all the binary protections now?" What? We then checked the latest binary, and shit. The exploitation becomes much harder now. But okay, fine. In our third year, we continue to explore the good attack service we had last year. And quickly, I find another issue. Last year, the bug was found in the metadata parser of MP3. And this year, it was in MP4. In the MP4 standard, all metadata stored in a container called box. And an MP4 can have several boxes. And every box has the size, type, and the box data. While parsing the box FTYP, the developer used the box size to allocate a buffer from the stack and read the data into it directly. So here we have an arbitrary size stack allocation. Compared to the fake bug we discussed before, this seems to be more exploitable. Here is the stack layout while parsing the box. As you can see, the return address is right below the local variable. And at this moment, our stack pointer is on the top of the local variable. To allocate the memory from the stack is pretty much like this. Subtracting from the SP, we take the unused part to serve as an allocated buffer. Then the box parser performs the operation on this newly buffer. Once the function ends, the SP is promptly pulled back, making everything we wrote as garbage. And this doesn't affect any local variable or return address at all, like this. So this arbitrary size stack allocation seems useless at the first glance. But if you think about it from a higher perspective, since the entire program operates as a multi-threading system, each thread has its own stack. So given that our stack allocation size is a 32-bit integer, can we jump a bit far from the current state? If by any chance there's another thread stack above us, we can override their stack. For example, we allocate a huge size across several memory pages and write 4 bytes. After the write, we close the connection immediately. When we close the connection, the stack pointer would jump back and continue the program. So if we can control the allocation size precisely, it's pretty powerful. And actually, we call this type of vulnerability the stack clash. So we have a stack clash, and the next challenge is to convert this vulnerability into read and write primitives for further exploitation. Due to the time constraints, here we skip over several details, such as the maybe unpredictable stack layout or the side effect of the stack clash. Today, I only want to highlight one special detail. When a stack clash is happening, all other threads are still running and changing their stack frame. That means finding the right moment to do the write is important, or the program will be crashed. We recall that the NS lookup feature in the debug page before. By reverse engineering, we realized that the feature works by calling the system code get host by name. So an idea popped out in my mind. Could we just run a DNS server on our own and delay the response? During the delay, the code stack would surely be handed at the get host by none, given us the full control of the time to write. So using this approach, we can lick the best edges and gain the PC control successfully. Everything is good. We bypassed all the protections and complete our exploit on September 19. I remember that day was our research team's meeting, and I was showcasing and explaining how elegant my exploit was. And the next day, Sonos released an update that patched my bug. So, I would like to circle back to the life of the vulnerabilities researcher I mentioned before. There should be one more stage. That's when your bug was patched silently. Yeah, all right, we still have 2 months at least. We can find another bug if needed. Originally, I planned to find another bug in our good attack surface. However, after a detailed investigation, it seems that we had unearthed most of the vulnerabilities there. This forced me to consider other potential attack surfaces. Given that Sonos relies on open source projects heavily, we shift our focus to the integration part of the open source project. Whenever an open source project is introduced into an existing system, there still needs some good code to combine them together. So if the developer do not fully understand the intent of the library, the chance of mistakes should be high. Sonos relied on XML for data exchange heavily. So our first target is the XML parser. Sonos used the open source project libxpad. Given that the library is a well-known library that should be extensive fast by the community, we can assume the implementation is good. However, what about the use of the library? It's not just about calling the function. To use the library, you have to write the corresponding callback to handle the data by yourself. And I feel the callback might be a good place to find bugs. Here is the callback written by the developer of Sonos. You can notice how they handling the text, the block, and the parent. Whenever it missed a block tag, it may lock some flash memory and fill with the next parent tag while they did put a limit on the callback. This restriction is only applied on the block tag. So this is probably the XML the developer supposed to have. One block paired with, where is my screen? Oh my God. Or I have junk. What happened? So I have to do another shot. Isn't I drunk? There's no screen, right? Okay. Okay, more. Give me one shot. Maybe too much. Never gonna give you up. Never gonna let you down. Never gonna run around and desert you. Never gonna make you cry. Never gonna say goodbye. Never gonna tell a lie. together. Yeah, together. Waiting for the screen, we can drink together. This is water. Cheers. Oh, yeah, my slide's back. Okay, let's continue. So this is probably the XML the developer is supposed to have. I have talked about this before. So you can see maybe one block paired with several parents, and the other pairs with other parents. And once the number of the block reach the limit, it starts processing. However, the developer did not aware the XML like this. Pull all the blocks recursively. So when it comes to fill the value in the parent tag, an out-of-bound write happens. Here we skip over several boring details, such as the OOB write dereferences twice, and we can't use any non-UTF-8 characters because of the XML standard. We overcome all of them and have an arbitrary write now. But the problem is, Sonos has enabled all the protections. So even we have the ability to write anywhere, we still don't know where to write. So we still need an information leak to know where to write. We revisit all the string operation and find an oversight bug that we missed in last year. The return of smprintf can sometimes be larger than the size you provided. So if the program assumes that the return won't exceed the buffer size, it can lead to issues. Here is the case in the SSDP broadcasting. Sonos used the return of smprintf as the package size directly. So that leads to an information leakage. Anyway, we have an OOB write and information leakage. Everything is in my control now. We chat all together on October 18, and oh my God, Sonos released another update on the next day. We checked the update. The good news is that the function of the OOB write is still there. However, no matter how we tried, we could not reach the vulnerable function. With a deeper analyzing, we realized that Sonos had made a major change on its architecture, and they removed all the entry points to the function with OOB write. So even the vulnerable function is still there, we could no longer to reach it. Such timing are just incredible to be a coincidence. We recall that in our first year, we observed that Sonos will upload the crash dump. But we don't think it's a problem because if they checked the crash dump before, we couldn't win the competition so easily. But at this moment, this is the only explanation that Sonos started to analyze every crash dump actively. We also asked some friends afterward. Indeed, they have the same feeling with me. Okay, well, it's fine. We still have more than 1 month. We can consider this as a course with a 1 month cost. Just accept it, and there will always be other vulnerabilities. And 1 month passed. We have almost run out of ideas and find nothing. We have several unsuccessful attempts. All of them are failed. We even start to give fuzzing a try. We have 2 weeks left and still nothing found. Since all of their source code are on the GitHub, I even consider hack into their GitHub account. All right, let's calm down. Take a deep breath. Let's review the bugs we have so far and consider what's the root cause behind these bugs and how did the bug appear in the development cycle. What scenario the developer makes the mistakes that results to these bugs. And we know the root cause and the scenario. The most important thing is how to find the variant. During the review process, I find a failure that is super interesting. Did you remember the fake bug we mentioned before? The size of the second read is decided by the byte received from the first read, allowing us to write up to 255 bytes. However, since the buffer uses dynamic allocation from the stack, we cannot exploit it. I also mentioned that about 1 month ago, Sonos released an update that patched my XML bug and have changed their architecture entirely. The architecture change also turns my fake bug into a real bug. Originally, maybe due to the poor regression test, the buffer size is now a fixed value. So as you can see, the buffer size is 184, and yes, we can write up to 255 bytes. We have a very small stack overflow and can exactly override the return address. Of course, this time, we remember to cut off the cable. Yeah. So this is also the vulnerability we demonstrated at Pwn2Own last year. It's time to share some reflection on the third year. First of all, I'm really glad that I didn't give up until the last moment. However, I still made some mistakes. The first I want to reflect is my coverage on binary-related bugs, such as the smprintf. I have overlooked it. This tells me that I have to revisit my methodology again. The second reflection is during the attack service analysis, the name SMB in the open source project like SMB2 really scared me. That makes me to have a mistaken assumption that it was a complex library. So I did not dig into. By the end of the competition, all of other things exploit the bug in that open source project. I think this should be the real shortboard for Sonos. The last thing I need to reflect is the OPSec. I should set out the lab environment properly from the beginning to avoid the crash dump upload. Small conclusion. The first, persistence is the key. I always remember when I was young, I said I will hack into Facebook someday in the future. It took me 4 years to finally do it. So how long could you persistent on the same things? Just circling back, if I had given up the Sonos in the first year, this talk wouldn't be happened. Or I hadn't pushed myself until the last moment, I will not discover that the fake bug becomes real. And this story wouldn't be a success. However, while persistence is the key, I believe that persistence on the right path is more important. The right path here is persistent on the right attack surface. To give an overview to all the bugs we have over the past 3 years, half of them are related to a good attack service where the handmade metadata parser. So putting all together, please don't give up until you find the right path. It feels like facing a really tough boss in a game. Even you can't defeat the boss, spending at least 1 hour every day still have benefits. Whenever you have a new idea, try to see if it can be applied to your target. Even if you failed, you still learn one more path that is not worth taking at least. Lastly, I want to share a quote with you. That's from the game Celeste, which got the Games of Impact of the Game Award 2018. Be proud of your death count. The more you die, the more you are learning. This game not only won the Game of Impact, but also Best Independent Game. It's also my top 1 game in my mind. The game's design in how to get the sense of achievement is really textbooks level. I truly recommend this to those maybe who are stuck at something. It might become another source of some kind of achievement for you. So keep going. This is the end of my presentation. If you have any questions, here's my contact information. Thank you again for being here. Thanks. Okay, I think this is the final talk. Is there any questions? If not, I can go down. Oh, that's the question. Good. Please speak slowly. I'm not native. Yeah. DC.
So, during this journey,
Yes.
what was your note-taking process? That was just what I was wondering. Were you taking notes on everything you're doing and saving analysis of the reversing so you can come back to it? Because, I mean, or do you just remember it? I mean, how does notes go into your process of taking notes on your findings?
Can you speak slowly?
Yeah.
Or use a more simple word because...
Like the details that you're writing down.
Yes.
How when you're doing your reverse engineering sessions, what are the details that you're writing down so you can come back? Let's say, you were talking about 3 years
Yes.
of this process. So are you taking very meticulous, details and writing them down through the process, or are you just remembering all of this?
It's very good question. I don't have the. Let me show the slides. This is not good habit. I do not take any notes. This is a bad habit. So I have to, while doing these slides, I have to open all the all the files and check my exploit to see what happened maybe 2 years ago or 3 years ago. So recode the process take me a lot of weeks. Yes.
So your exploit demonstrations where that was your note taking, you'd go back to it. And,
Yeah. So when I was doing the slides, I have to think, what is the file.crt? Yeah.
Okay. Very cool.
Yeah. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. It's good.
Any other question? Brave soul? Shirt? Free shirt? None? Okay.
Okay. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.